Hey, welcome into another edition of Man 101. And I'm going to build my wife some gardens so she can garden with the grandkids, plant tomatoes and beans and all those things that she wants to do right in this space. This is going to take me a couple days. It's going to be a big project, but I'm excited to share it with you. So again, check it out. All right, so I spread this blue tarp down. I'm on the ground because my knees don't bend, but what I'm gonna do is spike this thing down, because these landscaping rocks, for anybody who's ever done any landscaping, these things are a pain in the butt. So the theory here is I'm gonna be able to rake some of these rocks, or the majority of these rocks, onto this blue tarp and kind of get them away from my work area. So that's the plan. All right, so now you can see I've got to the grass line here, dug this down a little bit. Just gonna prep this and then move this rock wall down to here to kind of match this rock wall. And then the garden is gonna go back there eventually. Key to this for me is just finding rocks that essentially look the part and fit together. So that's all I'm trying to do, and I've moved these around a couple times so far, but I think I've got a decent kind of plan here. Step back and look. I don't like the way that fits. All right, part of the frustration and the fun of doing this is kind of the artistic side, if you will. I have rearranged this rock wall. You see all these rocks? At least a dozen, well, not a dozen, 8 times anyhow. And I finally am getting a fit. And the other thing I did is, if you look at this glove here, you see the blood on the tip of that glove? Let's shake it off and see what it looks like. I smashed the crap out of my finger between 2 rocks. And oh, there you go. Can you see it? Come on, focus, baby. Anyhow, that's that finger right there. The good news is that I smashed it so hard that it popped. So all that blood came out, which relieves, obviously it relieves a ton of the pressure when you smash your finger. That's what makes it throb, is all that blood underneath the nail. So anyhow, at least it popped out, so the pressure's gone. Welcome into another edition of Man 101. When you're a man, you don't read the instruction manual. You just fumble around until you figure out the answer. Man 101, you're welcome. So I've ripped out a bunch of rocks, and it probably took me 12 times before I found a pattern where this stacked correctly. And once I clean it up with fresh rocks and I build this garden right here, I think it'll look pretty sharp. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is, you see I've got a piece of old timber here. I'm using that as a kind of test timber. This is where I want the base of this garden to go. I've got my tamper here, so I'll make sure that this is good and compacted. And then I'll put my timber down and make sure that it's level. I'll check it for level. And yeah, it's close to spot on right there. And then I let the irrigation here, I'll snip that. Eventually it'll go underneath, I'll snip that, and I'll redo the irrigation once I've built the garden, but I'll make sure that I have the irrigation right there ready to go. So anyhow, that's kind of the start. We're getting it planned out right now. All right, so it's come to my attention that I offended some of you Jet fans, because your organization has completely changed, and this time you're convinced that they're gonna get it right. And so I unfairly accused you guys of not really knowing what you're doing when it comes to the draft. And I've got to be honest with you, Robert Saleh is one of my favorite people in the National Football League. I think the guy's an incredible coach, and I think he's a great leader of men. So I'm excited for Robert Saleh's tenure at the Jets. So I thought what I would do today to make it up to you Jet fans is, give you a little show and tell. Now this is actually the helmet I wore
in the AFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl 33. So I thought I would share with you guys some Super Bowl rings and kind of the story of the championship games behind getting to these Super Bowls. So see if you can pick out the one where the Broncos beat the Jets, okay? No, it's not that one. That's Super Bowl 26, the Skins over the Buffalo Bills. In that NFC Championship, we beat the Detroit Lions. I mean, put a beat down on them. It was like 45-10 or something of that nature. I mean, I'm telling you, the sisters were kinder in Shawshank Redemption to Andy Dufresne than we were to the Lions that day. So that's not it. Now, this one is Super Bowl 32. That's really my favorite ring because the Broncos on that day were 11-point underdogs or 11.5-point underdogs to the Green Bay Packers. So in the AFC Championship, we beat Pittsburgh. We had to convert a 3rd down and 7 at the very end of the game to seal the victory, which we did. So it wasn't that one. You're right, Jets fans. That's the one right there in the middle. That's Super Bowl 33. And that's when the Jets were up on us 10-0 in the 3rd quarter. And then we came back and opened a can of whoop ass to the tune of 23-0 in the 3rd and 4th quarter to beat your asses. So there you go. That's the ring that we got after we beat you in the AFC Championship. All right, enjoy.
All right, guys, as you can see, my garden is coming along. This is gonna sit up pretty high here as we make this little rectangle planter box for my wife and my granddaughter. So ultimately, I got a speed square here, at least that's what I call it. And I'm making sure my corners are square. Then I'm finishing drilling that up. And then I'll put a 8-inch galvanized spike in there. And I'll move on to the next one. Wow, pretty easy, right? There they are, until that's not going anywhere. All right, so there's my irrigation line. I'm gonna connect it there. I'm gonna fish it through here, around, and then I'll connect it to that right there so that this garden will have irrigation inside of it that I can tap into. Okay, you can see I've reconnected the irrigation. I even notched out one of these timbers. So now the irrigation will run through this garden and I can connect it over on that end, and this garden will have water. A little piece of advice my dad used to tell me all the time as a kid: measure twice, cut once. It's great life advice. All right, you've heard it said, work smarter, not harder. And when it comes to irrigation, there's a couple things I like to do. One, put the crimper on first, okay? And then this is really hard to shove in there. Even when the pipe is, you know, it's pliable, it's warm out. One of the things I like to do is I always carry one of these in my irrigation bucket with me. Little Bic butane lighter. And so what I like to do is get this thing good and hot. So once you get it nice and warm, watch this. It just slides right in there, all the way to the end, just like that. Then you put this on here, grab your crimping device so that doesn't come apart, and give it a nice anaconda squeeze, as Jack Black would say from Nacho Libre. And there you go, just that easy. I just got these steppers, these concrete steppers, rearranged because I moved this thing over about 6 inches. So I rearranged those to land right here. And you can see, if you get up close, you can see these little spikes on the edge of each one. Let me see if I can get this. See these little spikes on the edge of each one to make sure, got 3 of them on each, to make sure they don't slide around when they're being walked on. All right, so that garden box is built, and I'm gonna put one more right here that kind of mimics or matches it. It's only gonna be 1 square instead of 2 though. I think anytime you're building something like this, a garden, the first step, and the most important step, is to put the baseboard in, or where you're gonna start here on the ground level. Make sure that it's flush, that it's level. I'm gonna dig it down a couple of inches so it's in there nice and tight, because everything else is going to be built off of this first placement of this this first baseboard. So that's kind of where I start, and I'll build from there.
Man 101, it's important to know where you stand in life. Just about the time you think you're special, God does something to humble you. I'm at an autograph signing right now. This is my line. That's Hall of Famer Joe Willie Namath's line. Hey, stick. Bottom line, I suck. Man 101, you're welcome.
All right, here's one of the issues you run into that makes a project that you think is going to take a couple hours take a few more hours than you thought. Right where you want to put this baseboard, you find this tree stump. So I'm going to spend the next hour or so getting rid of this thing. That's going to be a pain in the butt. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Success. Now I'm ready to build. All right, just finishing up a little irrigation. See how we cut the irrigation? It came down here, so we cut that into the wood there, and now I'm just laying these last little sprinklers here. So two will water this way, and one will water this way, and it'll all get wet. So you have one of these little deals here when you're plugging these things in. So this just pokes a hole in that 1/2-inch tube, and then you jam this thing in there and never to be seen again. All right, so there you go. Now it's just filling this thing back up with dirt and cleaning up this area. Okay, so there it is. Project has been finished. Obviously need to put some more topsoil in these gardens, but the rocks are back in. Looking good. All right, so that does it, guys. About 24 hours of straight work over the course of 4 days, and these gardens are just about ready to be planted. The kids are gonna have a great time growing vegetables. Man 101, you're welcome.